All right. Well, thank you for joining in today. I really do appreciate stopping by. These are recorded and we do send these out after. Feel free to check out our Learn page as we have more webinars coming up for the month of May, covering more on elder abuse as well as business banking services. Today, we're going to be covering identity protection programs. We're going to go over some facts about identity theft, and then we're going to be taking a demo of what we have at Arbor, which is ID Protect. The reason that we're doing this is there's a lot of other options out there, and they're very similar. So what we're talking about today, even though it's pictures from our ID Protect, it will be something similar at like LifeLock or whatever financial institution you might be at that has the same option. So the reason identity protection programs are so big and they're still kind of new, a lot of people don't understand. It's much like carrying car insurance on your car for protecting you. However, this is going to protect things outside of your financial institution. So, that means anything that you give us, we will be responsible to hold it. But let's say the doctor sends you a bill and it has your social security number on it, nothing to do with your financial institution. Someone gets it. These are things that happens, and identity theft is a little bit different than fraud. Generally, fraud is the start of identity theft, and identity theft is a lot larger loss. Fraud can be like someone gets your debit card and puts a couple of dollars on it, or maybe a couple hundred, but it's usually a one and done kind of thing, where identity theft is they call it beachfronting, right? They get in, they set up, they start gathering your information, and some people don't know what's going on for 3-6 months, even a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're attacked. So it's important to have these things monitoring your background. The cool thing is most of them are not a annual contract. You can check it out for a couple months, pay whatever fee it is. You can usually see a lot of different options. But jumping into it, we do see that there were 12,000 data breaches between 2008 and 2020, resulting in 11 billion records lost. And this isn't actually making it seem like it's getting better. We are seeing a lot less loss as far as money loss and things like that, but we're seeing instead of it just being spread apart, so there's a lot less of it happening. It's falling each year, but when it does happen to a certain person, it's more detrimental. So we're seeing less people affected, but the losses being greater, and we'll dive into that here in just a second. So the facts: fraud loss is up 13% between 2019 and 2020. And again, it's not the amount of people that are being frauded. It's actually just when they get that one person, they're expanding on it, right? They get in there, they set up, and it's more of a total loss than just, again, like your debit card being swiped. And a lot of it's coming from account takeovers, are up 72% in 2019 over the previous year. And this is because a lot of us have been forced into the digital realm. We've been going down avenues we may not feel so comfortable with. But the data here will surprise you of who's actually at most at risk for these kinds of identity theft and who's actually reported of it. But the sad part is when you have an account takeover, 40% of it happens in just one day. And account takeover is going to happen in a lot of different ways. It could be you expose your username and password. You clicked on a link in an email or something along the lines of that, where now they have access to your email or banking information. And again, they go quick. You look at people would rather steal your social security number and all these other things, like getting your debit card number. On some black markets I've read, they sell for as little as 50 cents. So someone taking your number, not so much. It's getting your social security number and those other imperative and things that can identify who you are or help you get approved for things. 10% of Americans have been a victim of identity theft. You think about how many people we have in America, 10% of them, and you probably know someone that has some sort of it. But the sad part is those victims will actually be 20% more likely to fall again. And this is not just prying on the older generations, the Gen X, and those older people. It's not just them. It is a lot of different spectrums. And again, you're going to see here in just a second. But actually, millennials account for 33% or 1.6 million of the fraud reports. So that's not $1.6 million. That's actually the fraud reports. So 1.6 million of the fraud reports filed were millennials. And that's actually the biggest group. Now, why do you think that is? There's a lot of people that speculate. I see it as the generations of 30 to 39 and 20 to 29. I see a lot of them being more inclined to try new technology, whereas we get older and older, we're less likely to incline, or we're more nervous about doing it. And so I see millennials being the biggest one. And to me, it makes sense because we are the biggest users of technology. A lot of us are using our professional careers. You might see, I always call it the strawberry generation, but the younger people, the 20 to 29, they're not sought after as much because fraudsters know they don't have much. There's not much to steal. Where you look at a 30 to 39-year-old, they might be in their prime. Same thing with 40 to 49. I know there's still a lot, but you see these age ranges of being the younger people, and it's because, again, I think we have more exposure because we're using more technology. I do pretty much everything from my phone, banking and everything included. So it's not a surprise to me. So we think about the fraud. We do again see a drop in fraud actually getting certain people, but again, the dollar amounts being larger. But this is what brings us into our next point of actually talking about the programs themselves. Now, again, there are a lot of programs out there. I definitely recommend doing some shopping around. If you're an Arbor member, this program is very cheap. Again, it's not a contract, but it really does provide protection. And I've been in the financial realm for about 13 years, and there's no way to explain somebody. And I know that you've all felt that in your life where all of a sudden something happens and something that was like, oh, that's not important. That's not important. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, that was really important. The cost of a cup of coffee is about what most of these are. I think ours is $3 a month. And I'll go over some of the benefits of it, but these are similar to other programs out there. They're all going to cover some kind of money loss. They're going to do some kind of credit bureau monitoring, and you're going to have a specialist that helps you. And there's nothing more disheartening when someone came into my branch when I'm working and they say, my information has been compromised. Like I have a truck note from Wells Fargo in California and I don't know what to do. And there is nothing at that point. If you're not, it's like being in a car accident without car insurance. Well, you can't call up your car insurance and get coverage and realize how great that is. You have to kind of be into that program beforehand. And this is for me, it's hard to tell somebody. It's like, how do you feel that when you walk in? It's like the police can't do anything. I mean, you can file a police report, but if it's in a different state, you can lawyer up. You might have to pay $5,000 retainer fee and maybe more on top of that. On average, it takes a person that has an actual Social Security or like a credit report issue about 10 grand is the national average on what it takes. But it also takes you about 6 months to a year to go through that process. And so when you start explaining that, oh yeah, by the way, the credit bureaus, they only accept paper mail, and there's 3 of them, and then the legwork, and you start realizing how much it was worth having just a few dollars a month protecting yourself, giving you more sleep through. But the ID Protect does offer tri-bureau credit monitoring. So every 90 days, unless there's an incident, you get a fresh report. So you get to see it, you can print it, you can touch it, sniff it, smell it. I mean, it's a real thing. Some of the programs out there, I've seen them run into issues where it's like they're giving you a very friendly, easy to read version, but you might want the full report. This gives you both. Ours also covers up, and I said most of them will do this. Ours is $10,000 on fraud expense reimbursement coverage. This helps cover any of the costs that come into it when you are actually identified as having that fraud or that exposure. And this is, again, the national average. So we find this to be one of the best prices. There are ones that offer more, and there's ones that offer less. It really just depends if you're comfortable. I know LifeLock I think it's over $30 a month. You can get one that has like $1 million policy. That might be excessive unless you think you really do have reasons to have that coverage. But we see that a lot of times, 10 grand in coverage, maybe a little bit more is even, it would be nicer, but it's going to cover most of it. Most of them also allow you to register your debit and credit card. So if something happens, you can shut it down there, or they're actually monitoring the usage of it. So if a charge and your debit cards and your credit cards at your financial institutions, wherever they be, they do have their own monitoring systems, but this is another layer, right? I'm not sure if you've ever heard of two-factor authentication. This is kind of like a way of setting up. So you have ID Protect watching your purchases, and they're not nosing in. They're looking for, outliers, right? You just made a purchase in Michigan, and all of a sudden there's a purchase in California, right? They're looking for those things. And your bank will help protect that too, but it's just nice having the extra layer. The best part is access to a fraud specialist who will work with you from start to finish. Not a computer. You don't have to write letters to the credit bureaus. You have a specialist that does that, and that's all they do. And they're going to help you out through this, and they're going to know what forms you need to fill out. And it's going to save you a lot of time. Again, a lot of people, when they have these compromised issues, it's 6 to 9 months, even a year, to go through the process of getting it resolved by yourself. So it becomes very relevant when you're like, man, I wish I had someone to talk to. A lot of them nowadays, just because we're on the go, they're mobile optimized. So even ID Protect, much like some of the other programs that are out there, does have a mobile app. So you can look at your credit report, you can stay on top of things, you can get push alerts or text messages. I always push for actual text alerts or the push messages on your phone, because if something does happen, the faster that you're working on it, the less loss. That's why I don't really recommend email notifications unless you get your emails all the time. I know some people religiously look at their emails all the time, but I have email on my phone. I get emails all day from work, and I still would rather have text because it's instant. It's more of like, it's the best, closest thing to being proactive on it. And again, it costs about the same price as a cup of coffee. Ours is $3 a month. Some are more that you pay for. And then these are also covering your family too. So if you have young ones, which is a growing market, we're seeing young people actually being attacked more. It's growing. It's not growing at a situation where it's like become a pandemic of some sort, but it is definitely one of the things on the radar is as far as who is getting more hit, right? And as our millennials get older, you know, being that tech savvy, it's gonna diminish, and they're gonna go after the younger people. So what it kind of looks like the inside. So this is and again, common things that all these identity programs will have. I'm just using ones I have for example, but you generally have a news center, right? So you got a news center. You see here on the right hand side, there's like updated stuff. This where you see the Federal Trade Commission, this goes all the way down. So all of the departments, and there's probably like 20 of them that would help you with certain kinds of things. You also see the credit bureau's 3 phone numbers. So this is, again, the news center and resources. This is how you keep up to date, making sure that you're protecting yourself the best that you can. And I like this because it's not political, right? It's all that stuff's filtered out. It's just about fraud, about money, and about those things. So it's right to the point, keeps you on top. Nothing better than spending 20 minutes, at least a week, reading about these kinds of things just to keep up on the season, you know. And a lot of you probably aren't surprised nowadays. You had COVID, and you got people taking advantage of for fake COVID-19 shots being sent to the mail, or even the test kits, and that never was a thing. So it comes in different ways. This is where you'll find some of that. I also like the Education Center because it goes a little bit deeper. As you can see, if you're like the family, kids and identity theft, how can your identity be stolen? So these are, again, more resources that if you just spend a little bit of time, and you don't have to do it all the time, it's not changing super fast, but just by reading through some of these things. And again, a lot of the other programs will have something similar to this. You'll have all the same kind of things. You have a resource, education center. But my favorite part, and this is where that sad look upon someone's face when they don't have coverage, when they're walking into my branch telling me that this has happened, and I tell them there's not much I can do because, again, it's already happened. This is where, if you did have this program, you would definitely be thankful for this exact page, right? Lost or stolen wallet or purse, suspect identity fraud. You want to add additional members. You want to update your profile. There's actually even a phone number in this customer service representative. You don't got to pump numbers in. You call that number and they pick up. I mean, you might have to wait a couple minutes if they're busy, but there's no call tree where they're not trying to talk to you. You can get to a live person. They know that when you call this number, you're probably under a little duress, like, oh, I lost my wallet. But the cool thing about this is if something that does happen, this takes away a lot of that thinking on your own. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but these are specific topics about what would happen if you're a fraud or identity stolen, and kind of the best way to do it. Because when you are experiencing that duress and your emotions are going, your heart rate's going, you're trying to see that resolve. And when you call a phone number and someone answers, or if you have all the information right in front of you, it makes it easier, especially if you have the mobile version of it. So again, a lot of these programs are similar. They're very cheap. It is like insurance on your car. It's protecting your social security number, your credit report, and other things, even your family members and their social security reports, but it's protecting things that the bank doesn't cover, right? So again, if you have something stolen in your mailbox, nothing to do with your bank. If someone steals your wallet and takes your information, it's nothing to do with your bank. So I think those are things to definitely consider. I definitely recommend doing some research and choosing one. If you are a member of Arbor, again, this is only $3. Talk to your representative. I can when I send an email out, feel free to email back if you're interested. Doesn't take anything to set it up. Pulls right out of your account, but there are also other options. So if you don't bank with Arbor as your primary, there's a lot of them out there. Just make sure that either you know about it and you've made your decision of either whether or not you want that coverage or not, because a lot of people don't realize how exposed they are. So that's all I have today on covering identity protection program.